Good morning, rebels, and welcome back to my life. You know, I realized something funny, which is that I always say good morning, but these videos are never uploaded before noon, which means that it's actually impossible for the good morning to ever be appropriate. Something happened in my household recently that I feel the need to share with you, even though it's pretty disgusting and it's probably gonna gross you out. So my son's name is Luke, and he's one of the cutest kids in the world, but sometimes he'll do something that, well, it's just kind of a dick move. The other day, Luke and my wife were in my bedroom, and Luke took off his diaper, and it was filled to the brim with poop. As you might imagine, this is fairly common behavior for somebody who isn't even 2 years old yet, so my wife, as she usually does, decided to just give him a bath rather than try and clean up his whole body, which was, let's reiterate, covered with poop. Unfortunately for her, it turned out that he wasn't quite done. As soon as she put him in the bath, he pooped again. So my wife, again, quite reasonably, drained the bath. Unfortunately, this meant that his poop was immediately sucked down the drain and caught on that little piece of metal right below the rim. You know, the one that always catches your wedding ring if it falls off while you're taking a shower, if you wear a wedding ring. So once the bath had drained, my wife elected to take a bobby pin and shove the poop further down the drain to try and wash it away. Hearing the story later, this was a little bit of a mystery to me. I mean, up until that point, all of her actions made sense, but why would you try to push it down without trying to scoop it out for anyway? It doesn't really matter. My wife, as I've mentioned before, is pregnant, and this means that her stomach is very delicate right now, so doing this made her need to vomit. So she ran to the toilet to throw up, only to find out that earlier, without her knowledge, my son had taken the entire roll of toilet paper and unspooled it into the toilet, meaning that it was all just sitting there in this massive chunk right at the top. So she couldn't flush the toilet if she did puke in it, so with only seconds to spare, she ran to find the nearest receptacle that could handle her, shall we say, payload. That receptacle was my sink. Heh. So she had to clean up her own vomit in my sink, my son's poop in the bathtub, and the toilet paper in the toilet, and then she came and told me this whole story. Of course, I work at home, and I was there, and I was available, and she could have called for my help, and she didn't, and I don't totally understand why, but that's really not the point. The point is that babies can be the most disgusting things in the world. But it's not just poop and vomit and bodily fluids in general that are a problem with babies. They can also have personality issues. See, they don't know how to communicate yet, so if they're hungry, if they're tired, if they need to use the restroom, their default reaction is to scream. And if they're in a really bad mood, they won't just scream, they'll throw a full-on tantrum, they'll fling their body around, they might even hit you. But it's important to realize that they're not trying to hurt you, they're just flailing their body around to get attention, and this is important, they are not yet cognizant of their ability to hurt other people. And that point gets to the meat of what I really want to talk to you about today. See, a sociopath, by definition, cannot recognize the pain, the feelings, or even the reality of another person. Does this mean that all babies are sociopaths? Well, up to a certain age and to a certain degree, yes it does. But that's okay because they are babies. They are here on this earth to learn how to not be sociopaths and how to help all of us create a better world together. But the problem comes when these little sociopaths grow up and never learn how not to be a sociopath, or when they are educated in how to be a sociopath, which also happens. Now see, abusive relationships take all kinds of shapes and forms. They don't have to be romantic, they can be financial or a business relationship or anything like that, but let's take romantic for a second. In an abusive relationship, the abuser is somebody with the physical strength and stature of an adult, the motor skills of an adult, the verbalization and vocabulary of an adult, and yet they have never grown up past the infant stage of recognizing that other people exist and are important. Let me repeat that slowly and clearly. The abuser in a relationship is somebody whose mind has not progressed beyond the infant level. What's okay for them to do as a baby is absolutely not okay for them to do as an adult, and I'd like to illustrate this with an example sentence. He ran into the room screaming at the top of his lungs, then he flailed around with his arms and fists, and he hit me in the chest and the stomach, and I had to cover my face with my hand so that he wouldn't hit me in the face while I tried to calm him down. Now, if that's a parent describing their child's tantrum, that's maybe a funny story, or maybe it's just exhausting. If that's someone in a romantic relationship describing their partner, they are in an abusive relationship, and they are in very, very real danger. And if you are the person in that relationship, then you need to realize that this is simply a fact. Now see, the problem is that maybe one day that person could be rehabilitated, but it's very hard because he's already past the developmental phase in his life where it's relatively easy for him to change, and it is not something that you should be trying to fix. That person has already failed or has been failed by his parents or the environment in which he is brought up, but whether it was his fault or the environment's fault, it is not your fault, and you need to not be in a relationship relationship with that person. To a sociopath, you are a toy, a plaything. You are not a real individual with thoughts and feelings. No matter how much they may fawn over you in one moment, if there's a disagreement or any situation in which they don't get their way, they will throw a tantrum. Only it's not the tantrum of a 2-year-old child who might throw himself on the floor and kick. It's a tantrum of a 20-plus-year-old adult who can seriously injure you or worse. And what's messed up is that it's not that they don't love you, because in their own weird, twisted way they do, but they don't love you as a real person because deep down they don't believe that other people are real people. My child loves me and he loves his toys in roughly equal measure, which is kind of annoying, but that version of love doesn't stop him from screaming at me when he's angry or throwing his toys against the floor or the wall. Well, what if your partner, who is still in this phase of his emotional development, acts that way and you are the toy? There are very few things in life that are absolutely certain, and as John Green from Vlogbrothers has taught us, the truth resists simplicity. But there is one thing I can tell you with absolute crystal clear certainty, and that is that if you are in a relationship with an adult who still treats you the way that he treated his toys as a child, you need to get the hell out. It will probably be very hard. In fact, you might think it is impossible. And yet you have to do it, and there are people who will help you. Because if you don't, well, what happens to a child's toys when he's done with them? He breaks them and he throws them away. One last thing, when you make that decision and you are ready to get out, the one thing you must not do is tell your partner until you are safely away and out of their reach. Because, and I know this from personal experience, the surest way to instigate a child's tantrum is to tell them that you're going to take away their toy. I'm sorry that this is heavy, a lot heavier topic than I normally cover on these videos, but I heard some stories yesterday, man, and they really got my blood boiling. And if you don't talk about heavy things, they still happen, and they shouldn't happen. Not ever. On the off chance that you're seeing this video, because let's face it, not many people are yet, and you are in this situation and you need help, I've put some links in the description to organizations that will reach out and help you. If you need them, please take them. I love my children more than life itself. I love all kids. I love the limitless potential they have to grow up to be these amazing people who will just make the world so awesome for the next generation. But that doesn't mean that I have to love the people who have grown up to be tiny, weak little children in big adult bodies. Thanks for watching, Rebels. I promise I'll be happier tomorrow, and I'll see you then.